The first time the call came, they thought it was a mistake. It was 2:17 a.m., the kind of dark, still hour when even the slightest sound seems amplified, every creak of the house echoing down the hall. Lisa Evans stirred in bed, reaching for her phone on the nightstand. She squinted at the screen. Unknown caller. She frowned. Usually, calls like this were spam or wrong numbers. Still half asleep, she swiped to answer. "Hello," her voice was groggy, heavy with sleep. "Mom!" Her stomach dropped. The voice, soft, trembling, unmistakable, was her daughter, Sophie. But Sophie had been missing for weeks. Weeks before that, they had received the devastating call from the police. They had found her body in the river, downstream from the walking trail where she had gone jogging. The body had been discovered by a jogger, wrapped in a tattered blanket, her face pale, eyes closed forever. Identification had been certain. Her fingerprints, her backpack, the little charm bracelet Lisa had given her for her birthday. And yet, here was her voice. "Mom, it's me," the voice said again, quieter this time, as though speaking from far away. Lisa's hands shook. "Sophie, is that really you?" She sat up, clutching the phone as if holding it closer could make sense of this impossible sound. "Yes, Mom, please help me." Then silence. The line went dead. Her husband, David, jolted awake, groggy from the sleep, and saw the fear on her face. "Lisa, what is it?" Lisa could only point at the phone. David grabbed it, staring at the blank screen. It's nothing. Probably just a robocall." He tried to reassure her, though his voice didn't carry conviction, but it wasn't a robocall. The next night at 3:03 a.m., the phone rang again. Unknown caller. This time, Lisa didn't hesitate. Her heart pounding, she answered. "Mom," it was Sophie, clear, alive, and terrified. "Mom, I'm scared. Please don't leave me." Lisa's vision blurred with tears. She ran to the kids' bedroom, empty now. Sophie was supposed to be gone. She was dead, and yet the phone kept vibrating in her hands. David, now fully awake, grabbed the phone from her. "There's no one there, Lisa." But the voicemail told a different story. When they played it back, Sophie's voice whispered directly into their ears. "Mom, help me, they're still here." Weeks passed, and the calls became more frequent. At first, they came at night, always between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., always from unknown caller. Sometimes Sophie whispered, sometimes she screamed. Sometimes the phone would ring, and when Lisa or David answered, there was nothing but heavy breathing, except it was Sophie's breathing, unmistakable and panicked. Lisa and David didn't sleep. Every time their phones buzzed, they jumped, hearts racing, anticipating a voice that should not exist. Every ring filled the house with terror and disbelief. Neighbors noticed the change. Lisa's usually warm smile had disappeared, replaced by sunken eyes and twitching hands. David had stopped going to work some days, sitting in the living room clutching his phone like a lifeline, muttering, "She's calling, she's calling." The police were contacted. At first, they dismissed it. "It's probably someone playing a cruel prank," they said. "These things happen." But when they traced the number, there was nothing. The calls didn't come from any identifiable source. No cell tower logs. No IP address. Just calls appearing, connecting, Sophie's voice coming through as though she were on the other end of the line, alive and desperate. Then came the first visual clue. One morning, Lisa found Sophie's backpack, the one she had taken the day she went missing, lying on the kitchen table. It wasn't wet, it wasn't dusty, just there. The same charm bracelet was attached to the zipper. Lisa ran her fingers over it, trembling. How?" she whispered. David tried to rationalize. Maybe someone I don't know found it and left it here. Maybe it's a message, but it's just stuff. She's gone, but Lisa knew better. The phone rang again that night. She answered without hesitation. Sophie? Yes, Mom, the river wasn't the end. They took me. Lisa froze. Who took you, Sophie? There was only static for a long moment, then her daughter's voice again, soft, almost pleading. Mom, don't trust them. And then, suddenly, a second voice, distorted, low, terrifying. She belongs to us now. The call cut out. The house seemed to shiver. The lights flickered. Lisa and David clutched each other, hearts pounding, trying to reconcile the impossible. And the phone rang again. They knew, deep down, this wasn't a prank. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't their minds playing tricks. Sophie was calling them from somewhere no one should be able to call from, and they weren't the only ones hearing her. A week later, the neighbor's dog barked continuously, staring at the Evans house at 3:17 a.m. The neighbor looked outside. No one was there, yet the sound of a child crying and whispering, "Mom, help me," carried faintly across the empty street. Lisa began recording every call, every message, every whispered plea. She played them back, analyzing the voice, the cadence, the words. Everything matched Sophie's tone perfectly. This wasn't a recording someone had made. This was alive. The calls began to escalate. Phones all over the house rang simultaneously. The answering machine picked up calls Lisa hadn't even answered. Phones in David's office at work rang with the same unknown caller ID. On one horrifying occasion, the voice spoke directly through the landline, the old rotary phone, the one Sophie had learned to dial herself years ago. "Mom, I'm here, come find me." Lisa dropped to her knees. Tears blurred her vision. "We'll find you, Sophie. We'll get you back, I promise." But deep down, they both knew that Sophie wasn't coming back in the way they expected. And every night when the house went silent, when the clocks ticked toward 2 a.m., they could hear her voice again, faint but clear. Calling, laughing, crying, always on the other end of a line no one should be able to reach. The impossible was happening. Their daughter was contacting them from beyond the grave. And someone or something was listening. By the second week, the calls had changed. They were no longer occasional or faint. Now they came in waves. Sometimes 3 or 4 calls an hour, always at night, always from unknown caller. Lisa began to dread the sound of her phone vibrating. Each time it rang, her heart skipped a beat. David, who had once tried to rationalize the calls, was now pale and jittery, staring at every screen in the house, double-checking the time. One night at 2:13 a.m. the phone rang again. Lisa answered immediately. "Sophie," a long pause, then the voice unmistakable. "Mom, they're here, they're watching." Lisa's hand shook. Who's there, Sophie?" Static, heavy and crackling, filled the line. Then the whisper, barely audible. "The shadows, they took me, don't." The line went dead. David grabbed the phone, checking every number, every trace. Nothing, no record, no logs. It was as if the call had bypassed every system, every traceable connection. The next day, Lisa found a small, wet footprint in the kitchen. Barefoot, tiny, Sophie's size. She froze, staring at it. It wasn't possible. The house had been empty. The windows locked, the door bolted. And yet there it was. David dismissed it as a prank at first. Maybe some kid got in, it's just... But Lisa knew. She felt it in her bones. Someone or something was inside the house. That night, the calls escalated further. This time, Sophie's voice wasn't just coming through the phone. It came from the baby monitor, from the kitchen speaker system, even the car's hands-free device, sitting unused in the driveway, emitted a soft, high-pitched, trembling voice. "Mom, help me, they're here." Lisa ran from room to room, trying to chase the voice. It shifted, moving from device to device, always just out of reach. David tried to take charge. "We need to record everything. Play it back. Track it." They set up cameras in every room. Phones, baby monitors, laptops, anything that could capture the calls. The first playback was worse than they imagined. Not only did Sophie's voice repeat every word they had heard, but her cries also overlapped with a second voice, deep, distorted, like gravel grinding in a throat. Leave her, she's ours now." The cameras flickered. On one monitor, they saw something impossible. The shadow of a small girl moving across the living room wall, stopping near the stairs. She was pale, wearing the same nightgown Sophie had on the day she disappeared. But when they ran to the spot, nothing. Just empty air. The next morning, Lisa found the family dog trembling in the corner, growling at the wall. Its hackles raised. She reached down, calling its name, and the dog bolted to the basement stairs, barking at the empty doorway. When David checked, the basement was empty, but the old rotary phone sat on the table, ringing on its own. They answered, trembling. "Sophie," Lisa whispered. "Yes, Mom, they're coming." David's face went pale. "What do you mean coming?" There was no answer. Just a deep, guttural laugh in the background, layered over Sophie's trembling voice. Then the line went dead. For the next few days, the Evans household fell into chaos. Phones rang continuously, TVs switched on by themselves, lights flickered in patterns that mimicked the rhythm of Sophie's cries. It wasn't random, some intelligence was behind it, watching them, testing them, torturing them. Lisa began to notice something even more disturbing. Whenever she called Sophie's cell phone, disconnected weeks ago, it rang. Not just once, but continuously. And each time she answered, the line was silent, except for breathing. But this wasn't ordinary breathing. It was slow, labored, deliberate. And occasionally, between breaths, she could swear she heard words forming. "Mom, help them." David wanted to leave. "We have to move," he said. "This house, it's not safe anymore." Lisa shook her head. "We can't. We have to find out what's happening. If she's trapped, or worse." Then the unthinkable happened. Lisa's phone rang during dinner. Unknown caller. Both of them froze, the silverware clattering to the table. She answered slowly. "Mom," Sophie's voice was different. Altered, distorted, older, darker, not quite human. "Mom, I'm here. I can't leave, and neither can you." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. "Sophie, what's happening? Tell me." Static. Then a whisper, almost too quiet to hear. "They said I had to stay, so do you." The call ended. The house was silent again, but the unease lingered, thick in the air. Shadows moved across the walls, stretching longer than the dim light allowed. Every picture frame seemed to watch them. Every phone, every speaker, every monitor hummed quietly, waiting. Lisa and David realized they weren't just hearing Sophie. They were being watched, manipulated by something that had taken her voice, her presence, and twisted it. And then the first visitor appeared. A man, tall, gaunt, wearing a long coat. He didn't knock. He just walked into the living room while they were examining the recordings. "I see you've been hearing her," he said calmly, almost eerily so. "I can help. But you have to understand, she's not where you think she is." Lisa's voice trembled. "What do you mean? She's dead, the police, He cut her off, lifting a hand. "No, she's alive. And they want her, and now they want you." David stepped forward. "Who wants her? Who are you?" The man's eyes glinted in the dim light. "Call them whatever you like. They've taken her voice, her essence, and it's reaching out to you. If you don't act soon, you'll never hear her or see her again." Lisa's stomach churned. "Act how?" The man's gaze shifted toward the ringing phone on the table. "Unknown caller." "That," he said simply, "is your first warning." The phone rang again. This time, Sophie's voice screamed through the line, clear, desperate. "Mom, don't let them take you. I'm here, I'm here." Lisa and David looked at each other, terror written across their faces. And then, as quickly as it started, the phone went silent. The house, once filled with the electronic hum of calls, was dead quiet. But the sense of being watched remained, suffocating, as if the walls themselves were alive. Lisa and David knew they had only one choice. They had to find out what was happening. They had to uncover the truth behind Sophie's voice, before whatever was holding her realized they were paying attention, because they were next. By the third week, Lisa and David knew they had no choice but to investigate. Every call, every whisper, every strange sound led them to believe Sophie was trapped somewhere the living shouldn't be able to reach. They started with the voicemails. Every phone in the house, every line that rang, every device that had emitted Sophie's voice was recorded and saved. When played back, each one carried subtle clues, background noises, faint echoes, static pulses. Lisa began analyzing the audio, slowing it down, enhancing it. At first, it seemed like random noise, a fractured signal. Then patterns emerged, footsteps in the background, soft, dragging steps, a metallic clink like chains or shackles, and faintly the smell of damp earth which made Lisa's stomach churn. It was familiar, too familiar. David noticed something else. "These calls, they're coming from somewhere specific," he said, pointing to a pattern in the timestamps. Each call's signal had a subtle frequency signature. It wasn't a number, it was a location. They cross-referenced the coordinates. Each one led to a single place in town, the old abandoned community center on the outskirts, a place that had been empty for years. Lisa felt her throat tighten. "That's where the body was found," she whispered. David nodded. "Maybe not, maybe something's left behind." "Something, Sophie." The next night, armed with flashlights, cameras, and every recording device they could find, Lisa and David drove to the abandoned building. The streets were eerily empty, the fog rolling in thick. When they arrived, the center loomed like a tomb. Its doors hung crooked, the windows dark and shattered, graffiti marking every surface. "Stay close," David whispered, gripping Lisa's hand. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. Their flashlights cut swaths of light through the darkness, illuminating broken chairs, rotting gym mats, and stacks of old files. Then softly they heard it, the unmistakable sound of a ringtone. Sophie's ringtone. Lisa froze. Her stomach knotted. "It's coming from upstairs." They climbed the stairs slowly. Every step creaked, the sound echoing through the building. When they reached the top floor, the hallway stretched before them like a black tunnel. The lights on their cameras flickered, as if reacting to something unseen. Then, from a small, darkened room at the end of the hall came a voice, Sophie's, clear and terrified. "Mom, Dad, please." David opened the door. The room was empty, save for a single phone on the floor. The screen lit up, unknown caller displayed in bold letters. Lisa picked it up, trembling. "Sophie?" she asked. Her daughter's voice filled the room, echoing as if bouncing off invisible walls. "Mom, I'm here, but I can't leave. They won't let me." Suddenly, the phone line crackled. Another voice spoke behind Sophie's, low and distorted. "You shouldn't be here." The walls shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Lisa stumbled back. David grabbed her, shielding her from the sudden blast of cold air. Their cameras shook violently, capturing shadows flitting across the walls, human-shaped, but warped, unnatural. Lisa dropped to her knees. "Sophie, what happened to you?" A pause. Then the voice, soft and pleading. They took me. I tried to fight, but I couldn't," the distorted voice hissed, overlapping hers. "And now you're theirs too." Suddenly, the lights in the room went out. Their flashlights flickered and died. The temperature plummeted. Their breath fogged in front of them. Then a new sound, soft, dragging footsteps approaching from the far end of the hallway. David fumbled for a lighter. A weak flame illuminated a figure at the doorway. Small, pale Sophie, but wrong. Her eyes were hollow, blackened, her limbs twisted unnaturally. Lisa screamed. "No, Sophie!" The figure tilted its head, a sickening smile spreading across its face. The voice came again, layered with Sophie's. "Mom, Dad, come with me!" They bolted. Tripping over debris, hearts pounding, they ran down the stairs. But the building seemed to stretch endlessly, doors opening into hallways that weren't there moments ago. The echo of Sophie's laughter and the distorted voices followed them, rising in a crescendo of horror. Finally, they burst out into the night air, gasping, choking on cold fog. Behind them, the building stood silent, as if nothing had moved inside at all. When they returned home, the calls didn't stop. Every phone, every device, every screen in the house began ringing simultaneously. Sophie's voice screamed, pleading, warning. "Mom, Dad, don't listen, they're here." From the shadows of the living room, they saw movement. The faint outline of a child, drifting across the floor, fading in and out of view. Objects began moving on their own. A chair toppled. The television switched on, displaying static that somehow whispered Sophie's name. Lisa clutched David's arm. "We can't stay here. We have to figure out what's happening, what she's trying to tell us." David nodded grimly. "And if we don't, we're next." That night, as they tried to sleep, the phone rang again at 3:13 a.m. Lisa answered immediately. "Mom, they're coming for you. Please, don't fall asleep." The line went dead. From the bedroom window, a shadow moved. Small, pale, familiar. And outside in the fog, hundreds of whispers joined in unison, chanting, "She belongs to us, and now so do you." Lisa and David realized something terrifying. Sophie's voice was no longer just a cry for help. It was a warning. And the entity or entities who had taken her were growing stronger, aware that they were being watched, aware that the parents were reaching too close. And they would not stop. The next night, the Evans house fell into complete chaos. Every device rang simultaneously at 2:13 a.m. Phones, tablets, laptops, even the oven's digital clock. Each screen flashed unknown caller, vibrating violently as though the calls were physical, pushing against the walls themselves. Lisa and David scrambled, grabbing phones, picking up landlines, trying to answer them all at once. "Mom, Dad, don't sleep, they're here," Sophie's voice echoed through every device. It was no longer just her voice. Layers of distortion, whispers, even a growling undertone filled the air. Then, the first physical manifestation appeared. A chair toppled in the living room. A plate slid off the counter, shattering. Dust swirled as if a storm had formed inside the house. The air grew cold, freezing their breath. Shadows moved independently of the dim light, coalescing near the hallway, forming shapes, human shapes, small and childlike. Lisa's knees buckled. "It's her! It's Sophie!" David grabbed her, pulling her away from the hallway. "No, it's not her. That's that thing pretending." The phone rang again. This time the ringing wasn't electronic. It came from the walls themselves, echoing, vibrating through the floorboards. Lisa dared to answer. "Sophie, yes, Mom, Dad, help me," her voice cracked, terrified. They're in the house." A low, guttural voice answered immediately after hers. "She's mine now." The lights flickered violently. One moment the hallway was empty. The next, a small figure darted past, a girl in a wet nightgown, hair plastered to her face, eyes black as coal. She vanished the moment Lisa screamed. Objects began moving violently now. Cups flew off the counter. Drawers slid open and shut. Every electronic device powered on by itself, showing static or glimpses of Sophie's face, twisted, hollow, screaming silently. Lisa and David ran through the house, trying to keep together. But the house itself seemed to betray them. Doors led to hallways that shouldn't exist. Windows opened to pitch-black voids. And the laughter followed them, soft, sweet, terrifyingly innocent, yet edged with a sharp malice that made their skin crawl. David grabbed the camcorder they had been using to record the phenomena. "We need evidence, we need proof." They watched the playback in horror. On the screen, shadows moved independently of any physical source. Sophie's face appeared on every surface, mirrors, windows, camera screens, but always fleeting, always distorted. And always the same whisper followed. "She belongs to us, and so will you." Lisa felt a presence behind her and spun around. The figure of Sophie hovered inches from her face. Pale, eyes hollow, mouth open in a silent scream. Her hand reached out, brushing Lisa's shoulder. The skin was icy, like touching frost, yet the fingers felt impossibly solid. Lisa screamed. David pulled her back, but the moment they separated, the figure vanished. The room was empty. Silence returned, but the oppressive feeling of being watched remained, thick and suffocating. The phone rang again. Both of them jumped. Lisa answered. "Mom, Dad, don't trust them." Sophie's voice was fading as though being pulled away. The shadows, the shadows." A sudden crashing sound came from the basement. David grabbed a flashlight and headed toward it, forcing Lisa to follow. As they descended, the air grew colder, heavier. Their flashlights flickered, revealing shapes along the walls. Human-like forms, but twisted and unnatural, pressed against the surfaces, watching silently. At the bottom of the stairs, the old rotary phone sat on a chair, ringing endlessly. When Lisa picked it up, she heard Sophie's voice, panicked. "Mom, Dad, hurry, they're coming." Then the line went dead. The lights flickered on. On the wall, written in condensation, appeared a single chilling phrase. "We are here. She is ours." "Now you," David's hands shook. We have to leave. Now." Lisa grabbed the camcorder, the phones, everything they could carry. They ran upstairs and out the front door. Outside, the night was unnaturally silent, fog curling around the house like fingers. From somewhere deep in the mist, they heard laughter, soft at first, then rising into a chorus of giggles and whispers, chanting, "She belongs to us, and now, so do you." The couple didn't stop running until the house was far behind them. When they turned back, it appeared empty, normal, as if nothing had happened. Yet every electronic device in the car began ringing simultaneously. The voices, layered and distorted, screamed into the night. "Mom, Dad, come back, she is waiting." They realized the truth. Sophie was no longer just calling them. She was trapped somewhere, but they weren't safe either. The entity or entities that had taken her voice, her essence, were aware, growing stronger. And now, the house itself seemed to pulse with malevolent intent, ready to follow them wherever they went. Lisa clutched David's arm. "We can't stay. We have to figure out what they want, or we'll lose her and ourselves." David nodded grimly. And soon, before it's too late. But as they drove into the foggy night, Sophie's laughter followed them. From their phones, from the shadows, from everywhere and nowhere at once. Every time they tried to escape, it drew nearer. And in the deepest recess of the darkness, whispering on the wind, the message was clear. She is ours, and now so are you. The following days were a blur of terror. Lisa and David hardly slept, barely ate. Every device, every screen, every phone in the house screamed with Sophie's voice. Sometimes whispers, sometimes pleading, sometimes laughter, but always carrying the same message. She is ours, and now so are you. Determined to find answers, Lisa began scouring the internet for similar cases. She found stories of families hearing the voices of children long after their deaths, all linked to mysterious entities feeding on grief and fear. The accounts were terrifyingly similar. The victims reported phone calls, electronic interference, and shadows that moved independently of any light source. David, meanwhile, called in every expert he could think of. Police, paranormal investigators, even psychics. No one could explain it. Each person left shaken, some refusing to return. One psychic, trembling, had whispered under her breath as she left, "Whatever took her, it's not done. It feeds and now it knows where you are." One evening, while reviewing the recordings, Lisa noticed a disturbing pattern she hadn't seen before. Between Sophie's voice and the distorted, guttural voice, there was another sound, a clicking, rhythmic, almost like someone counting or marking time. Lisa realized, with a chill running down her spine, that it matched the sound of the river near the place Sophie's body was found. The entity had originated there, feeding on her grief and terror before moving into their home. David gritted his teeth. "Then that's where we go. We find it there, we end this. Whatever this thing is, it's anchored to that place." They drove to the riverbank at night, carrying flashlights, phones, cameras, anything that could record, capture, or defend against the impossible. The fog was thick, curling around the trees like ghostly arms. The water flowed silently, deceptively calm. As they approached the site where Sophie's body had been found, Lisa's phone rang. Unknown caller. She answered immediately, heart in her throat. "Mom, Dad, please hurry." Sophie's voice was desperate, almost childlike. "They're close." A low hum, like distant machinery, rose from the river. Then came the shadow, the first tangible sign of the entity. It emerged slowly from the water, a black, formless mass, writhing like smoke, yet solid. It pulsed, almost breathing, and from within it, Sophie's voice screamed, overlapping with hundreds of other voices, all trapped, all screaming. David tried to step forward. "Lisa, stay back!" But the entity seemed to sense their presence. The air around them grew icy. The fog thickened, and every electronic device exploded with static. Their phones rang simultaneously, each playing Sophie's voice layered with that guttural whisper. "Don't come, or you'll join her." Lisa's vision blurred. We can't just leave her," she cried, reaching toward the river. The mass of shadows shifted violently, forming a grotesque shape, part human, part smoke, eyes glowing with an otherworldly red light. Sophie's face appeared within it, distorted, her mouth moving but no sound coming from her lips. The whispers grew louder, chaotic, threatening. David grabbed Lisa. "We need to pull her out, somehow, I don't know how." A sudden clarity hit Lisa. She remembered the voicemails, the repetitive phrase in one call. "Count the seconds, follow the rhythm." She realized the entity was bound by the pattern, the rhythm, the timing. Somehow it could be distracted, disrupted, manipulated. Shaking, she grabbed a lighter from her pocket and lit it. Holding it high, she began moving in rhythm with the clicks she had noted in the recordings, a strange counterrhythm to the entity's pulse. The shadows convulsed, recoiling. The glowing red eyes darted toward her, then away. Sophie's voice rose, overlapping with all the others, becoming clear. "Mom, Dad, hurry, please!" David joined in, clapping, stomping, creating a chaotic, uneven rhythm. The mass of darkness shuddered, shrieking in a soundless agony. Bits of mist and shadow peeled away, revealing glimpses of Sophie, her pale face and terrified eyes staring at them. Lisa and David realized they could disrupt the entity, but it was incredibly weak, and they had to act fast. They shouted Sophie's name, called to her, their voices cutting through the chaos. Suddenly, Sophie emerged, no longer a shadow, but solid, fragile, wet, and shaking. Lisa swept her into her arms, hugging her tightly. Sophie sobbed into her mother's chest. The entity didn't disappear, it recoiled, wailing silently, its form condensing into a single dense mass of darkness at the riverbank. The parents, holding Sophie, retreated slowly, shouting and clapping, keeping the rhythm to repel it. Finally, the shadows receded into the water, vanishing beneath the surface. The river returned to its calm, deceptive state. Silence fell. The phone stopped ringing. The fog lifted slightly. Lisa and David sat on the riverbank, holding Sophie, trembling. Her hair was matted, her clothes wet, but she was alive, real, not a shadow, not a ghost. For the first time in weeks, they felt relief, but relief was fleeting. Sophie's eyes darted toward the water. "They're still there, waiting. They didn't like that we escaped," David shivered. "Then we keep moving. We stay together. We never let them catch us again." Lisa nodded, hugging Sophie closer. "We'll protect you, we'll fight. Whatever it takes." But deep in the river, a ripple moved against the current, like a hand brushing beneath the surface. And from somewhere in the shadows of the trees, a whisper floated on the wind. "This isn't over. She is ours, and now so are you." The Evans family didn't sleep that night. They stayed huddled together in their small, dimly lit apartment, Sophie wrapped tightly between them. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound carried the faintest echo of her laughter or the entity's whispers. Lisa's hands shook as she checked the phones for the 100th time. Nothing. Silent. Too silent. David, tense and restless, whispered, "They're planning something, I can feel it. They're not gone. They're waiting, watching." Sophie, pale and exhausted, leaned against her mother. Her voice, barely above a whisper, trembled. "Mom, they didn't like it when you saved me. They said I belong to them." Lisa clutched her daughter tighter. "No, Sophie, you belong to us. Always." Then, at exactly 3:13 a.m., the first signs of the final confrontation began. The apartment lights flickered violently, throwing long, grotesque shadows across the walls. Every phone, tablet, and electronic device erupted simultaneously with unknown caller. A chorus of Sophie's voice layered with the guttural, distorted laughter of the entity. Lisa and David stood, protective, clutching Sophie. The shadows began to gather in the corners of the apartment, coalescing into forms, twisted, smoky, yet distinctly human. Small faces emerged from the darkness. Children, dozens of them, pale, hollow-eyed, all staring at the family. And above them all, the central form loomed. Sophie's voice distorted, screaming through the room, yet the body, twisted and ghostly, hovered just above the floor. "They want her and they want us," David whispered, voice shaking. Lisa nodded grimly. "We have to fight. We have to keep her safe, no matter what." Then came the first physical attack. Shadows lunged at them, grabbing at their arms, their clothes, their hair. They struck like wind made solid, chilling, suffocating. Lisa's scream pierced the night. David shouted, trying to fend them off. Every attempt to touch them felt like grasping smoke. But Sophie cried out, a sharp, commanding voice. "No. Mom, Dad, don't let them." The entity recoiled at her command. For the first time, she was no longer a voice, no longer a shadow. Her presence carried power. Lisa realized something crucial. Sophie's fear had fueled the entity, but her courage could repel it. "Hold on to me, Sophie," Lisa shouted. "We're together." David joined hands with Lisa, forming a protective circle around Sophie. They began shouting her name, over and over the distorted chorus of whispers. Their voices, full of love, defiance, and desperation, resonated through the apartment. The shadows screamed, silent, deafening, swirling in fury, but they couldn't penetrate the circle. Sophie's face glowed, pale and ethereal, yet solid. She stepped forward, summoning every ounce of willpower she had. The central mass of darkness writhed violently, shrieking in a soundless cacophony. Faces emerged, twisted and horrifying, screaming silently, mouths moving without sound. Then the shadows recoiled, pulled back toward the apartment corners, gathering in the corners of reality itself. Lisa and David kept shouting, forcing the entity into submission. "Sophie, you are ours, you're safe. You're alive." Finally, the mass convulsed one last time and dissolved into the floorboards, evaporating like smoke into the night. Silence fell. The lights returned to normal. Every phone, every device was dead quiet. The fog of terror lifted. Sophie collapsed into Lisa's arms, trembling. They're gone." David held her tightly. "For now, but we need to be careful. They'll always try to reach you if they can." Over the next days, the calls stopped. The shadows did not return. The house, once filled with constant malevolent presence, became just a house again. But the trauma lingered. Lisa and David sought help. Psychologists, spiritual counselors, and even paranormal specialists. All confirmed the impossible. Whatever had taken Sophie's voice, whatever had nearly claimed her life, had been bound, yet it could always try again. Sophie, though physically unharmed, remained quiet and wary. She avoided the dark corners, jumped at sudden noises, and never touched a phone without a parent nearby. Yet, in the stillest hours of the night, Lisa sometimes swore she could hear it. The faintest whisper, so soft it might have been imagination, just at the edge of hearing. "She is ours, but not yet soon." It was a reminder that the evil they had faced was patient, waiting, watching, and that, no matter how strong they were, the boundary between the living and the entities that lurked beyond was thin. Too thin. Lisa looked at Sophie, brushing the hair from her face. "We fought for you, baby. We'll always fight for you." Sophie's small hand found her mother's. "I know, Mom, I know." And for the first time since the nightmare began, Lisa allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the worst was over. But somewhere deep in the shadows, a whisper lingered, waiting, patient. And in the darkness of the river, beneath the surface, the entity pulsed once more. "We will return, she is ours, and so are you." The Evans family would never forget the horror. They had survived. But the memory of the calls, the shadows, the twisted voice of their daughter reaching from beyond, would haunt them forever.